Hello and welcome to the Positive Mindset Tribe, a refreshing and empowering podcast on how to become a magnet for love, abundance, and joy. And as you have probably guessed, it all starts with your mindset. I am your host, Verónica Moreno, a mindset coach, therapist, and energy healer, and my mission is to share with you my most powerful tips, psychological tools, energy healing techniques, so you can manifest the joyful, meaningful, and successful life you deserve. Are you ready for your weekly dose of motivation, confidence, and empowerment? Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Positive Mindset Tribe. In the previous episode, the first one of 2023, we talked about how to make a year-end review, how to assess how 2022 went, and I also share some intention setting and manifestation techniques to make sure that 2023 is in line with your values, and so you can attract all those things that you want into your life. If you haven't listened to this episode, it's still January, still the beginning of the year, so still a good time to review, to assess 2022, and to set intentions and goals for the year ahead. And if you're listening to this any other time of the year, these kind of reviews and time for self-reflections are always good. So it doesn't need to be the year end or the beginning of the new year to touch base and to reflect on how our lives is going. Now, when doing a year end review, I explained in the previous episode that the first question to ask yourself is, what is your definition of success? To understand if our life is taking the direction we want for it, is to understand what is our definition of success, not society's definition of success, not our parents or relatives or partners' definition of success, but our definition of success, our values. And I promised I would share more information about how to get clarity about our priorities, our true values, the direction we want our life to take. And this is what this episode is going to be about. And this step is often overlooked. So I'm going to explain why this is so important, because it sounds like something very simple, something very silly and very obvious sometimes, but it is not. So if you have been struggling to get clarity about your goals, your life direction, if you've been feeling a bit lost, confused, or maybe demotivated, or if you're just interested in getting to know yourself a bit better and to do some self-discovery, this episode is for you. So first of all, let's start by understanding why this is so important, why getting to know ourselves, our priorities, our values, and our life direction is so important. So reason number one is because when we come to this world, we come with our soul essence, with our unique traits, skills, qualities, talents to share with the world, with lessons we need to learn, with karma we need to clear. We are all unique individuals, very special and unique individuals. There are not two human beings that are exactly the same. We are all different and unique. But as we grow, we go through a process of being kind of brainwashed and programmed at school. We are programmed by what society expects from us, from what we see on TV, on the commercials. Even our parents, bless them, they try their best to give us good education, good values, but inevitably they will try to shape us based on their beliefs. And those beliefs might not be aligned with ours. So, for example, if you are born in a Muslim family, very likely you will be a Muslim and follow those beliefs. Whereas if you are born into a Christian family, you are more likely to absorb that culture, those beliefs and traditions. Now, this is not right or wrong. There is not a set of beliefs that are right and the other ones are wrong, or a tradition that is right and a tradition that is wrong. What is important here is that we stop and assess those beliefs and see if they are aligned with who we truly are. and ask ourselves, are these beliefs and these programs serving me, or are they limiting me? Is this culture, these traditions, align with my true self, with what I believe deep inside, with my direction in life, with my purpose, with my calling? And if limiting beliefs is a topic you would like to explore further, episode number 3 of this podcast has everything you need to know about how to identify and remove limiting beliefs. So it's very important that we remove these layers. I see these kind of like beliefs, programs and patterns that we acquire from others, like layers, that sometimes we need to remove. We put on these layers to please others, to be liked, to not be judged, to be accepted, to be loved, to be recognized. So it is important to understand if these layers are something we need to remove, so we can get to our core, to our essence, right? So very important that we understand what is me, my true essence, my values, my priorities, my beliefs about life, and what is others. And again, I'm not saying everything you learned from your parents or at school is wrong. Not at all. There are many beliefs that shape us into adults, right? Into functioning adults. There are many traditions that are wonderful. So it's not that they're all right or wrong. It's about assessing them. It's about understanding if they are aligned with our core essence. Reason number 2, why this is so important, why having clarity about our direction, our values is so important, is that without direction, life is like driving a car without a destination in mind. And you might not like where you end up. So when we don't have direction, we are just running like headless chicken. Basically. So imagine you want to go on holidays and you decide to jump on a car and simply start driving. Most likely, you're going to end up either following where everyone else is going or completely lost. And this is exactly the same in life. Many times we get caught in the hamster wheel, go to school, go to uni, get a job, start a family, retire, life is done. And it is very dangerous to not stop every now and then and think if this is the direction we want our life to take. Because we might realize that this is not the life we wanted for ourselves. And we might realize this when it's too late. Although it's never too late to make changes, but you know what I mean. So for example, this was my experience in the corporate world, having a very convenient life based on society's definition of success, what other people were doing. It took me over 13 years, I think, to realize that that's not what I wanted. So I wish I had saved a bit of time on this, to be honest. But I had never stopped and thought that maybe this is not what I wanted. I just assumed that was what life was about. And it was only when I moved to London, and I guess changing environment helped a lot to see life with a different perspective. But when I realized that I didn't want to go with the current, with what everyone else was doing, with what was familiar for me and I had been kind of programmed to do, I felt very, very lost. Very, 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 very lost. I was so confused because I felt like I didn't know myself anymore. I was like, this is not what I want. I'm not happy in this job. I'm not happy with this lifestyle, but I have no idea what I want instead. So I was at a point where I knew what I didn't want, but had no clue about what I did want. So I had to go through a deep process of self-discovery, of removing all those layers of understanding, which beliefs were mine, which beliefs were from others. So it was a very deep process that I'm so grateful for, because it completely changed my life. But what I want to say is that if you're at that point where you are lost, where you are confused, and maybe you know what you don't want, but you have no idea what you want to do instead, that's perfectly fine. And this is just a stage, right? So with a bit of guidance and time to get to know yourself better, you will find that you are able to connect with your true self, and it can be a very beautiful process. So I would definitely recommend. I'm going to share some exercises later in this episode, so you can start this process of self-discovery, and I would invite everyone to do this. So yeah, this is another very important reason that without direction, we don't know where to go. And although it might sound like a fun plan to just go on holidays once without choosing a destination and just go to the airport and catch the first flight, it might be a cool one-off experience, but that's not I wouldn't say it's the best way to run your life in general. And this doesn't mean that you are not supposed to go with the flow, and it doesn't mean that you have to have, by direction, I don't mean you have to have a life plan or your whole life planned. Not at all, because this will change with time. Our priorities can change with time, our values can change with time. As we grow, as we develop, we change. Life circumstances change, so sometimes our goals are not always possible, or sometimes there are global circumstances, for example, that are beyond our control. So it is also important to be flexible and to be able to adapt. But we should have at least a clear direction of general values that we want in our life. Right, so reason number 3 why this is so important is that if you don't have clarity about your values and your life direction, you will very likely struggle to find motivation to achieve your goals. Let me explain this with an example. So if your goal is to own a house, for example, you will need to be very clear on why it is so important for you to own a house. Because you will probably have to work hard and save money to buy a house. And if you don't have a strong driver, a strong motivation, procrastination will kick in so easily, like this. So it is very important in this example to ask yourself, why do I want this house? Is this something I really want? Or do I just want it because it's what everyone else wants? So very important to have clarity about your values, your direction, to get that motivation, to get that clear driver. And again, I have experienced this myself many times. When I don't have a clear direction, I procrastinate a lot. And when you feel confused, when you don't have something pulling you, it's very difficult to achieve any goals, because there are two main forces, two main opposite forces, a driver and resistance. So if we don't have a strong driver, the resistance, procrastination, when we feel lazy, limiting beliefs, will hold us back. The driver needs to be stronger. And for that driver, that motivation to be stronger, we need to have a very clear image or vision of what we want, of where we are going. Right? So those are the 3 reasons why finding clarity and having a clear life direction is so important. Now, to help you with this, I would like to share 2 different exercises that you can do today for self-discovery. Very easy. You just need pen and paper. I would recommend that you take some time to do them. So when I give the instructions, you might want to stop the podcast and spend some time writing and journaling about it. You can also just think about it if you're driving, if you're in the middle of doing something and you don't have time to stop and write about it. But I find that when you find a quiet space to do it and put some quality time where you're not going to be disturbed and you can take your time to really think about the questions, is much more powerful. But this is just a suggestion, obviously. So the first exercise is great to get clarity around your priorities and life direction. So I would like you to think of a few areas of your life that are important for you. That's the first thing. Bring to mind a few areas of your life that are important for you. And this could be family, friends, career, spirituality, sports and community work, for example. And I want you to think about why these areas are important to you. What do they represent? Why are they important for you? Once you've done that, for each area, in a scale of 0 to 10, being 0, everything is going wrong in this area, this is terrible, it couldn't get any worse than this. And being 10, this is perfect, I can't think of anything else that could be better. What score would you give to each of these areas? So for example, family might be a 10 because you just got married and you have a great relationship with your parents, with your siblings, and you have a lot of good quality time with your family. Maybe career is not going so well because you're in the middle of a career change, you're a bit confused. Whatever it is for you, or it could be the opposite. It could be the family is a mess right now, but you're smashing it in your career. So just give it each of the areas individually a score between 0 and 10. Now, I also want you to think about which ones are priority for you. So when you are reflecting on why are these areas important to you, probably some of them are more of a priority than others. So which ones are a priority for you? And now what I want you to do is to assess each area. And here you can pick one randomly to start with and go in a circle or going through the list. It might be a good idea to start with the ones that are either high priority or the ones that have the lowest score, the most negative score. So assess each area and think of what would need to happen, what would need to change for these areas to become a 10, or at least to improve them. Maybe a 10 is not realistic, but if one area is a 4, what could you do to bring it to 6 or to 7? So what would need to happen? What would need to change? And also you can spend some time thinking about feeling grateful for the things that are going well, because it's very rare. I do this exercise with many of my clients when we start working together, especially when they're confused, when they're not sure about their values, their priorities. And I think I've never met anyone who has given a 0 to one area. So even if it's a 1, even if things are terrible in one specific area of your life, there is always something, even if it's small, to be grateful for. So very important that as we assess what's not working and what needs to change so we can grow, so we can develop ourselves. But it's also important to keep gratitude in mind and to be grateful for the things that we already have, for the things that are going well, that makes us happy, that are a blessing in our lives, that we are grateful for. So once you do this exercise, which you can draw in a piece of paper, like a list or a circle with different triangles, be creative, do it in the way that works for you. So this is going to give you what I call a life map, to give you direction on your next goals, your next steps, things that need to change. From here, you can work on an action plan for the year and set specific goals for the year. So again, this is something I do with many of my clients, especially when they're a bit lost or they don't know where to start. And we draw this life map together, and then we work on each area in particular. We work on what needs to be let go of, what patterns need to change, and how to become a magnet to attract what they want into their lives, to make those areas a 10 or as close to 10 as possible. And one of the things we do is set kind of individual goals, or individual or specific tasks about each area. So that will give you kind of a clear map to follow. At least you will have a visual of what your priorities are, what needs to change, and what to do about it. So I find this a very useful one to do every now and then, definitely once a year, because this might change in time. So if I don't know if I would be able to find the one I did 5 years ago, if I did one 5 years ago, but if I had done it 5 years ago, and probably I did, it would be very different to the one for this year, because I have changed, I'm a different person, and I will keep changing and growing and evolving. And also as we grow older, obviously our priorities change, right? So this is not something that is set in stone. This is something that might change and will change, very likely. So it's important to do it every now and then to make sure that our priorities, our direction, our goals are up to date. Right, so try that one and see how it goes. And the second exercise that I want to share with you today is, this one is more to find clarity around your true values, around your essence, your beliefs. So I wanted to think of someone you admire, someone you really, really admire. And it can be a relative, it can be, like someone someone who's already in your life. It can be a public figure. It could be a science fiction character. It could be a historic character. It doesn't matter. They don't even need to be real. But think of someone you really admire. And if you can think of someone who you admire overall, much better. But if you think of a few people, maybe it will be a few different people that you admire for different reasons. That's also perfectly fine. That's also good. So yeah, someone or a few people you admire, and spend some time thinking about what values or behaviors do they demonstrate, and what do you admire about them, and why this is important for you. And this will give you a clear idea of the values that matter to you, and also about your strengths and your skills, because what you see in others, good or bad, it's already in you. So if you admire someone that is very brave and hardworking, that's probably in you already. It might be a bit dormant, but it's in you already. The same way as when we criticize and we see the negative in other people, there's a part of that is already in ourselves. And I know this is a bit difficult this might be a bit difficult to take, but it is true, and that's why this exercise works, because we are projecting. Instead of thinking, what are my values, we are thinking about other people's values. We are projecting it, and it's easier to identify those values. I'm sure the idea that when you criticize someone that's something that is already in you, or something that is being triggered that need to be healed. That's a bit more difficult to take, but I will probably talk about this more in another episode, because it's a very interesting idea. But yeah, for now, keep in mind, describe those people with as much detail as you can. Talk about their values, their behaviors, what they do, what people they are surrounded by, with as much detail as possible, because that will tell you a lot about yourself. So this exercise, although it's about describing them, is not about them. It's about describing you through them. So this one, it's an exercise that is very simple, but I found very, very powerful and very interesting. So those are the two exercises I had for you today. I hope you find them useful. Like I said, if you spend some time, you can spend some quality time where you're not going to be disturbed, and where you can spend some time like properly journaling, like writing in detail about each answer. So for example, if you're thinking about a character, instead of saying this person is brave and hardworking and fun and has a good heart, try to go a bit deeper. What does having a good heart mean for you? What does courage mean to you? How would you define courage? How does that person demonstrate courage? So challenge a bit yourself with even more questions. Continue that dialogue flowing, so you can get to know yourself better. Because in all honesty, this step is very often overlooked in when people start a personal growth journey, or when they want to start healing or clearing some patterns or some beliefs. But it is one of the most important ones, because there's no way you're going to be happy if you don't know who you truly are, if you don't know yourself. It's impossible. It's only by living a life that is aligned with your true values that you will be able to be happy and fulfilled. There's no other way. And sometimes getting to know oneself, like I said, because we go through all this programming and we put on all these layers to like others, and for others to like us and to be accepted and recognized, it can be more tricky than it might seem to get to the core, to the essence of ourselves. But it is the only way. It is the only way. And for me, it was only through that process and through understanding who I truly was, my beliefs, my traits, my essence, what my soul was telling me to do, that I started to feel fulfilled, that I changed my life direction completely. And it was only then that I felt that I was in control, because before I felt like I was living someone else's life, not mine. And now I still face challenges, of course. It doesn't mean that life is going to be perfect. Life is not perfect. There will always be challenges which help us grow. But the sense of knowing that your life has the direction you want is priceless, and you can only do that by getting to know yourself. So a very important topic, although it might sound very, very simple and very obvious. Okay, my loves, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any other ideas or suggestions of topics you would like me to cover, please reach out. I'm here to serve you, so ask and you will receive. I'm going to ask you a favor, which is that if you are enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, give it a good review, and share it with your friends, your loved ones. Invite people to follow the Positive Mindset Tribe, so we can reach and help as many people as possible. I will leave a link to my website in the description, in the show notes, for those of you who want to find out more about my background, about the work I do, and how I have helped many people to find clarity and to reconnect with their true essence. This is something very common and that is such a beautiful process. So I will share some more info in the show notes. Okay, my loves, sending much love and light to everyone, and see you next week. Bye bye.